There was a time when the idea of what animals we eat wasn't fixed. It wasn't chicken, beef, and fish neatly packaged in a supermarket. It was whatever existed around you, whatever you could hunt, whatever hadn't disappeared yet. And if you go back far enough, the menu looks very different from today. Mammoth. Thousands of years ago, humans didn't just live alongside mammoths, they hunted them. These weren't small animals. A single mammoth could feed an entire group for weeks, maybe longer. Hunting one wasn't just about food. It was survival, cooperation, planning. Early humans built traps, used fire, and worked together in ways that shaped what we would become. But over time, the mammoths disappeared. Climate shifts, human hunting, probably both. And just like that, one of humanity's earliest food sources vanished. Not replaced, just gone. Dodo. The dodo lived on an island that had no natural predators, so it never learned to be afraid. When humans arrived, that became a problem. Sailors hunted them easily, not because they were particularly delicious, but because they were there. Slow, trusting, defenseless. Within less than a century, the dodo was extinct. It wasn't overhunted for luxury. It wasn't even highly valued. It just didn't stand a chance. Passenger pigeon. At one point, passenger pigeons were so numerous that flocks could darken the sky for hours, billions of them. And naturally, humans turned them into food. They were cheap, accessible, everywhere, perfect for feeding growing populations in North America. But something changed. Industrial-scale hunting, habitat destruction, no limits. And in a shockingly short time, billions turned into zero. The last known passenger pigeon died in 1914. From abundance to absence.
Dog. Dogs have been companions for thousands of years, but they haven't always been just companions. In many cultures, at different points in history, dogs were also food. Sometimes during famine, sometimes as tradition, sometimes simply because they were available. But over time, something shifted. The relationship changed. Dogs became closer to humans, emotionally, socially. In much of the world today, eating dog feels unthinkable. Not because it always was, but because our connection evolved. Cat. Cats followed a similar path. In ancient times, especially during hardship, they were occasionally eaten. There are records from Europe, Asia, even parts of the Middle East. But like dogs, cats moved from survival resource to something else. Companions, symbols, even sacred animals in some cultures. And once that shift happens, it's hard to go back. Food becomes off limits. Horse. Horse meat used to be more common than people realize. In some ancient societies, it was part of rituals. In others, it was just another source of protein. But as horses became tied to transport, warfare, and agriculture, their role changed. They weren't just animals anymore. They were partners. In many countries today, eating horse is controversial or avoided entirely. Not because it never happened, but because the meaning of the animal changed. Whale. Whales were once hunted on a massive scale, not just for food, but for oil, fuel, industry. Entire economies were built around them. And yes, their meat was consumed too. But as technology advanced and awareness grew, whaling became one of the most criticized practices in the world. Today, in most places, whale meat is no longer part of everyday life. Not because whales stopped existing, but because humans chose, at least in part, to stop.
Sea turtle. Sea turtles were once considered a delicacy. Their meat, their eggs, even their shells were used. In some regions, they were heavily hunted for centuries. But sea turtles reproduce slowly. They can't recover quickly from overhunting. And over time, populations collapsed. Now, in many parts of the world, they're protected. Something that was once food is now something we're trying to save. Peacock. Peacocks weren't always just ornamental birds in gardens and palaces. In medieval Europe and parts of Asia, they were served at feasts, not just for taste, but for display. They were symbols of wealth and status. The kind of food you didn't eat because you were hungry, but because you wanted to impress. Over time, that culture faded, and the peacock returned to being what it looks like, a bird too striking to belong on a plate. Rat. Rats have always been close to human settlements, and in many places, they've been eaten. Still are in some regions. But in much of the modern world, rats became associated with disease, filth, and urban decay. So even though they're technically edible, the idea of eating them feels wrong to many people. Not because of biology, but because of perception. What we eat isn't just about survival anymore. It's shaped by culture, emotion, history. Some animals disappeared. Some became companions. Some were protected. And some just fell out of favor. But if you look closely, there's a pattern. The line between food and not food was never fixed. It moved. It changed. And it still does.